Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're working again on my 1967 Southwestern Bell service truck. It had some plans for me. I thought we were just going to be able to throw some simple lifters in this thing and call it good, but it wants some more work done to it before I can sell it. It's throwing me a curveball here. I want to fill you guys in, so let's go dig into it. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in on another video on my Southwestern Bell service truck. We're doing kind of a mild restoration on it. And the last video we did on this thing, I thought we were done on it. If you remember the last video on this, we had some issues when I went on a actual test drive on this truck. When I got to town, the thing was knocking pretty bad. And I narrowed it down to the lifters were kind of sticking on me. So I got a set of lifters, you can see here. I got some lifters and some gaskets, and I even got a carburetor kit because I thought the thing was kind of running a little lean. It's kind of running rough at idle, and I could never get it to run right, and the carburetor adjustments weren't doing what I thought they were, so I thought maybe we have something plugged up on the carburetor. But anyway, I have all these, I got all the parts in, and I started tearing down on it, and I thought, well, when I had it warm and pulled it in the shop, that'd be a great time to check the compression just to have the numbers for the auction, because I always like to sell a vehicle, especially when it has a used engine, with compression numbers, so bidders can see the health of the engine. Just generally, just compression numbers are always good. So I thought, well, while it's warm, I'll pull some compression numbers for the auction listing at least, and then I'll throw some lifters in it once it cools down. So I pulled the compression numbers, and we have two that don't want to participate as much as the others, which is an issue. So I thought, well, we did adjust on some of the valves, you know, several episodes back on this thing. So let me redo that. I readjusted the valves, checked it again. It was the same. So then things started getting concerning. Basically we have number 2 and number 6 are about 95 PSI. And the rest are between 125 to, there's one close to 150, or maybe two that were close to 150. Somewhere around there. I didn't really... once I found problems with it, I kind of stopped paying attention to the big numbers. The lower numbers were what was concerning to me, and they were definitely just barely over 90 PSI on the compression tester here. Now I have it hooked up to number 6. I've been doing a little bit of investigating off camera, and one thing I was like, whenever I get basically any engine that has a low number like that, I want to determine if it's in the cylinder walls or the head, and the way to do that would be test it dry and test it wet. And what that means is basically when you're just doing a normal compression test, that would be considered dry. And then if you want to determine if it's the rings in the piston or the valves or something else, you put some oil in the cylinders, and if it goes up, it is typically the rings, because that oil will go down on the piston and seal up the piston and the rings better, and it will cause the compression to go up. If it stays the same, it is generally the valves, or it could be other things like the head gasket or something along that nature. But since we have 90 PSI and the thing still runs and is not blowing all the water out, I'm guessing it would be the valves. So what I did was I put some oil in the cylinder and did the compression test again, and it was the same. And I just got done doing it on number 6. Unfortunately, I can't show you guys because there's already oil in the cylinders, because I've already done the test. But I can show you. I can show you the number here. So I'm going to go ahead and run a compression test. You can see there, we're on number 6, like I said. And again, we already have oil. I pumped oil in the cylinders, so there's oil around the piston, and we'll see if it comes up any. It is about 95. So since it didn't come up any, I am guessing it is going to be valves. There's some issues with the valves in number 2 and 6. Hopefully it's nothing major, but anyway, yeah, it's been a struggle of a day trying to figure out what to do with this thing. I went through, well, let's just go ahead and pull it out and rebuild the whole thing, and I also went through, like, do I try to see if there's any carbon or something stuck in the valve and try to run some you know, some tricks down the carburetor and maybe clean up the valve face and make them seal better. But you know, at that point, am I just doing a Band-Aid, or am I really fixing something? If there's a piece of carbon stuck on the valve, that can fix it. And I kind of boiled it down to, I'm just going to pull the head and have the head rebuilt, and then everything should be good to go there. I think we are pretty good on the cylinders. The spark plugs look pretty good. I don't know if you can see that. I don't think we're burning any oil. And if we were burning oil, I think that would be an indicator of the rings not being very good. So everything's pointing towards the head, basically. And another thing I wanted to check, just to eliminate, basically I had to decide if I want to pull the engine or just pull the head, leave the engine in the truck. Another thing I checked to help me decide that was oil pressure. Before we go showing you the oil pressure, if you remember the, I don't know if it's the first or second video on this truck, we actually put this engine in here. This is the second engine that I've had in this truck running. The first engine, the original engine, well, not the original, it was been replaced down the road, but the one that came in the truck when I got it, I got running. And the thing ran great. I did a compression test on it for the auction, and it was 150 all the way across. Great compression numbers. Engine was kind of meh in the running department, but it ran decent. But whenever I went out and drove it and got the engine kind of warm, the oil light came on and we had low oil pressure. So it had an oil pressure problem with really good compression. And this engine has great oil pressure with compression problems. That's like 50, 60 pounds cranking. Now granted, the oil is cold, but even when it was hot, the thing still had 25 or 30 when I tested it initially, just to determine if I want to pull the engine or not. And since it has great oil pressure, I believe this engine is a low mile engine, and we're not seeming to be burning any oil. And when I put oil in the cylinders, we aren't raising compression. What led me to think we're just going to pull the head and do a valve job and just take a risk on that and see if that fixes our problem. Hopefully, what I'm hoping is we pull the head and we see some problems with the valves and we know right away, hey, that's our problem. So I'm going to get on yanking the head off here. Luckily, we have a lot of room in the 6-cylinder trucks, and it's pretty decently easy. A lot easier compared to a V8 because you only have to pull one head. So I'm going to get after yanking this head off, and then we'll get it to the machine shop and get it checked out. Well, I got the intake and exhaust manifold pull off, and I was doing some checking here, and I found something I wanted to show you guys. So take a look at this. I thought it would be a good time to just kind of see if I can find something wrong. And I'm gonna have to get you guys set up here to where you can see this. Hang on with me. All right, hopefully you can see this. This is our intake, and this is our exhaust for number 2. And number 2 is one of the ones we were having issues with. And as you can see, I still have the exhaust and intake rocker off of this cylinder, so the valve should be fully closed. And what I did, or initially what I did, was I sprayed some WD-40 in here just to see if the level changed, if it dropped down in the valves. And I wasn't really seeing much, and couldn't really tell much that way. So I thought, well, why don't I throw a spark plug in it and spin it over and see if we have any of that spray out. So that's what I'm going to do with right now. I have WD-40 in the exhaust and intake, and I spin this over. Now it's sucking. We went past the spray part, so it sucked all the WD-40 out of there, and now it's spraying it out. Let me put some more in there so you can see. Should have had this set up better. So now we should be spraying it out again. So basically, our exhaust valve is leaking, and pretty bad. You see that? basically, you know, nothing's happening here because the rocker's off, so there should be nothing coming out of any of these ports. They should be sealed off. So our exhaust valve was bad on that one. That is really good news. I'm really happy to see that. So I think we'll be able to get this thing back to 100% with a new valve job and get that head rebuilt. So I'm going to continue on with pulling that cylinder head off and get it off the machine shop. All right, so I got the head yanked off of there. Before we dig into this, and we got some issues over here. Before we do that, let's take a look at the head. I have the head sitting here. I have it kind of cleaned up, and I have some solvent in the ports on the head there. And as you can see, this is number 2 and this is number 6. These are our 2 that were causing the most problems. And as you can see, we're definitely leaking here, and even our intake is leaking on number 2. I think our intake's good on number 6, but our exhaust is definitely leaking on number 6. And we also have an intake on number 5. There might be some seepage there on number 4. You could get away with that, definitely. Definitely some intake leaking here. Maybe the exhaust is a little wet on number 3. And then number 1 is definitely leaking too. So definitely some issues with our valves on this head. Another thing I noticed was the blue gasket, the head gasket. You can see here, this I think would be like a Felpro gasket, so an aftermarket gasket. So someone has been in here before. I know on the FEs, the V8 trucks, they have a multi-layer steel gasket from the factory. So that's a way to tell if somebody's been in there or not, because 9 times out of 10, it's not the factory gasket they go back with. It's some aftermarket gasket like this. And I'm not quite sure on the 300s and the 400s, but I'm guessing it was the same type of gasket. So this, I'm guessing this is an aftermarket gasket and someone's been in here before. So that is kind of concerning, considering this was supposed to be a low mile engine when I got it. Now, granted, this, 5-digit odometer, you never know. So you're always taking a risk when someone says low mile, even buying a truck. It can look nice and clean, but still they just took care of it and it's 170,000 miles instead of 70,000 miles. Kind of like my Rangoon Red 67. It shows like 68,000, but I found some maintenance logs on it and it was showing 178 was the next time they needed to change the oil. So, that's a really nice truck, but it's rolled over. So you just never know. You see here, you can see some more of the blue, but our big issues come whenever I pulled the head off and was looking at the bores. They are very, very shiny. It's going to be really hard to tell on camera, but they're just very shiny and polished. And you don't want that on your cylinder walls. You want to see that crosshatch visible on the cylinder walls whenever you hone a cylinder, when you do your final hone. And that crosshatch is basically grooves in the cylinder wall to retain oil and help lubricate everything. So whenever that's polished off and it's really smooth, that means that your bore is larger than it should be. I don't see any markings on the pistons, so I think it's standard bore. I don't think the bottom end's been rebuilt or anything like that. Someone just might have taken the head off and did some work to it. So since these are standard pistons, the bore is 4 inches, and I have my bore gauge here set to 4 inches here, zeroed out on 4. So let's just see what the taper is on number 1. There is a pretty significant ring ridge there. So down in the bore, about 1 inch. We're not that bad. What are we, about 3, 4? 3. Let's go up here towards the top where the ring ridge is. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Well, way up here we are 15. Maybe even some 16 in some spots. Yeah, basically that's not good. You really don't want to see anything more than 5. I mean, on an older engine like this, you're going to have wear. There's no way to prevent it. You know, unless the thing is, you know, 10,000 miles or something. You're probably going to measure some wear up at the top. So this engine's had a few years to get that taper in the cylinder wall, so I can't fault it any. But unfortunately, you know, our replacement engine in here is kind of turning out to be a dud. So I didn't spend a lot of money on this. I'm in about 200 bucks in it if you don't count my fuel and time going to get it, which you probably should, but I picked up some other stuff while I'm up there, so I'll count that as a wash. Yeah, the engine we took out of this thing had great compression, even all the way across, but had low oil pressure. This engine has great oil pressure, but uneven compression and taper in the bores. So I have a decision to make. Do I yank this engine out and rebuild this one since it's standard? Do I rebuild the other one and hope that maybe we don't have to buy pistons because it's been rebuilt before? I think it's 40 over those. So if you get too deep in it and have to bore it and you're going 60, which I think you could do on these things safely, but still I don't like going way over 40 on anything just because you're nearing the end of the life of your block and you're just kind of boxing yourself in a corner if you ever got to do anything again. So, and then, yeah, should I just yank out one of my 300s and rebuild one of those? I have one. I could probably get another one. You know, decisions. Or do I just rebuild the head and slop it back on here because it ran? But then I just couldn't do that ethically and morally. So, yeah, this project is turning into a doozy. I just can't seem to get this thing done. I guess I probably should have not tried to cheapen out and get a used engine to put in here. I probably should have just rebuilt the one that was in it. Hindsight's 20/20, but I guess I'm going to make up my mind, decide what to do, and you guys will see it here, so stand by. All right, guys, in the back of my truck here is the solution for our 240 problems we've been having, and I'm hoping this will be the end of them. So, third time's the charm. I picked up, hang on, another 240 or a 300. I'm not quite sure yet. The truck this engine came out of is labeled as a 240, and the guy I bought it from thought it was a 300, but you know, it could just be a 240 and he didn't know. Unfortunately, the guy that built this motor passed away about half a decade ago, I think, is kind of the story I got taught. Basically, this is a rebuilt engine and of unknown displacement. So it's kind of, it looks really nice. There's some issues with it I'd have to redo. Basically, the paint is kind of not where I would want it to be. But the big problem with it is currently locked up. I didn't know it was locked up when I went to go buy it. Luckily, I grabbed the fan and tried to turn it, and then the thing was really hard to turn. So I went and got tools and tried to crank on the damper bolt and couldn't get it to turn over. And we got a bigger ratchet, couldn't get it to turn over. Took the spark plugs out. Put oil in the cylinders, still couldn't get it to turn over. So unfortunately it is locked up. It's been sitting in a shop for all these years. And so we have some issues to sort out here. But I think we looked inside the cylinders. The cylinders are all clean. There's no rust in them. Perfectly good cylinders. So hopefully we can get the thing unstuck and salvage the engine. I did have to pay up for it, but it came with some pieces on the trailer, mainly a Lunar Green 67. So check this thing out. This is kind of why I was able to make the deal happen, because we have I'm a sucker for a 67, as you guys know, and Lunar Green is one of my favorite colors. So I kind of made the deal happen in my head because I wanted to bring this thing home. I was really bummed that engine is locked up because I was hoping I could just throw it in the Bell truck and get that thing done and send down the road. So, but it'll make some good content. We'll get to peek inside the engine, see what all it is. We'll be able to figure out if it's a 240 or a 300, and hopefully get the thing freed up without too much trouble. I'm worried that there's some issues in the bottom end underneath the pistons. There could be some rust in the crankcase, and that's what stuck the pistons. So we have that to figure out. But the reason I'm out here in the middle of nowhere on the dirt road is because I'm actually going to surprise my wife as a Mother's Day gift with the 67 as a Mother's Day gift. This is her favorite color, lunar green, and I actually sent this truck, this listing to her, and she fell in love with it and wanted me to go buy it. And it was really, I was trying to get this engine here for the Bell truck, and I said, I don't need any more projects. You know, that I have so much on my plate, I can't stand another project. We'll have to find one sometime down the road. So she was in love with it, but I got talked out of it that we're not picking it up. And I had the idea, oh, I could surprise her. She's been wanting a truck. So I have to shove this thing and hide it from her for a few weeks until Mother's Day comes around. And she is currently at the shop, so I can't go there right now. So I'm waiting for her to leave. And then I'm gonna sneak in and throw this thing in the shop and try to cover it up so she can't see it. We'll check this thing out. It's not perfect, but it's good enough to be a good builder for it. And that lunar green is gonna look great once we polish the oxidation off of it. Has lots of oxidation, but we'll get that off and get it all polished up. So I'm gonna let her decide what she wants to do with this truck, if we're gonna film it or not. I don't know if she wants to be on camera, but basically it's gonna be her truck. We're gonna build it the way she wants it to. And I'll probably give you guys a peek here and there when we get it finished or as we're working on it. But the main thing is getting this Ford 6-cylinder, whatever, 240, 300 home and on the engine stand and see if we can get it unlocked. So let's go check it out. All right, update on the 240. I got it here in the shop on a cherry picker and just kind of poking around with it. And I gave the engine a colonoscopy up the drain plug hole on the bottom of the pan. And the bottom of the pan is kind of concerning looking. I'll post a picture here. The drain plug was finger tight, and if you can see, the bottom of the pan is all crusty and the paint's all messed up. So I'm kind of wondering if this thing sat on the floor of a concrete shop and didn't get some water up to here and it seeped into the drain hole and kind of rusted the bottom of the pan or something of that nature, because it doesn't look very clean on the bottom side. But taking a peek up in the engine, everything looks spotless up there. So hopefully that's all right. One thing I did notice, I'll post a picture here again, is the camshaft was absolutely covered in the white grease assembly lube stuff. And I had a buddy that told me that he had an engine that was stored for many years with that kind of assembly lube on it, and that stuff dried up hard and it locked that engine up solid. So I think that might be what's going on here. As much of that lube as I saw on that camshaft, it might be in the timing set and everything just locking this thing up solid. But what I did do is I got a breaker bar on the flywheel. I took the starter off and I did get it to spin. It's very hard. I don't want to spin it a lot if that stuff is hard and keeping it from wanting to spin free and easy. I want to try to at least soften it up and get as much oil and lubrication everywhere as I can, because on the bore scope it did look very oily in there still, so that's a good sign. But I still want to get it on the engine stand, get it flipped over, and see if I can soak some diesel in there or something and break that greasy stuff up and maybe get as much out of there as I can. And then spray some lubricant in there, get some oil in there, and maybe even prime the oil system to get oil shoved into the crank and everything, just to make sure we don't have any problems there before I really start to spin the thing over. But thankfully it's not completely locked up. I didn't see a bunch of rust. I didn't get a peek at the bottom side of the bores. It was hard to get my bore scope up there to take a look at the bottom side of the pistons, but everything I saw looked okay besides the bottom of the pan. So I definitely want to take the pan off anyway to clean the bottom out. And I just want to I want to repaint the thing, because it's painted the light blue and that bugs the crap out of me, because it should be darker blue. You can see here the rear cover plate on the engine I took apart. That's original Ford. It's a lot darker than this, and I have an Eastwood paint color that matches the original really good. And it's going to be tough to clean this engine up and scuff that paint up good enough to make sure the paint's going to stick, but we'll give it a go. See if we can get this thing, make an engine out of all the three I got. So I'm gonna get this thing on a stand and see if we can get that oil pan off and take a look. All right, here we go. Got the engine on the stand and getting ready to pop the oil pan off for the first time. I'm gonna break the seal here. There it comes. Got her kind of glued on. Looks like we tore the gasket. That's okay. All right, let's take a look. There's all the grease I was talking about. Good news is the bottom of the bores are perfect. So that was the main thing I was worried about. If you can see up in there, no rust in the bottom of the bores. So we are good there. I think right up here in this camshaft is what's going to be our problem. See all that goop? That is the assembly lube. Let's see if it's hard. No, it's not hard. So that is, I thought that was for sure going to be it. I wouldn't think it would be on our crankshaft. Huh. Well, I guess we have some more digging to do. I thought I had it figured out. It would be that grease since I saw that, but that's not hard at all. So, do some more digging. I might loosen the caps and make sure it's not the crank, because we don't want to score the crank up or do something to our bearings, just be doing, you know, by not taking our time and doing it right. So I'm going to do some digging and see what I find out, and I'll let you guys know what I find. Oh, also, I just took a peek down here. It looks like the bottom of our pan is pretty clean. I guess my bore scope was just making this look a lot worse than it was, so really that's not bad at all. So thankfully we don't I don't think there's any moisture that got in this thing. So still a mystery as to why it's locked up, but I'm gonna give it a go. All right, got the engine spun over, and I did get it freed up. And another thing I did was I verified this is a 240 engine. So we didn't get a 300 on the deal, but that's all right because the Bell truck was originally a 240, so we're going back with what it originally was. And the truck, the lunar green truck that this engine came out of, was labeled as a 240. So all that checks out. You know, I was kind of hoping it would be a 300, that somebody did all this work and they sourced the 300 crank and rods, but we're dealing with the 240. But I think it'll be just fine. 240s run pretty good. They just slightly lower on the power than the 300. I did get everything spun up and rotated a couple times, but it was still kind of tight. And I decided I'm going to take a peek at the bearings. And unfortunately, I'll show you here on number 4 on the main bearing. This one was the worst one. If you can see that, our bearing looks like a used bearing. So something is going wrong with the crank. The mains have been, well, the crank's been turned. It's 20 under. The mains have been honed. So somebody's been in here doing work, probably whenever they did the rebuild, obviously. And I think the mains are tight, and I think that's why this thing locked up. The assembly lube, if you can see some of it here, it kind of got tacky. And I think just the tackiness in there and all these bearings being a little tight, I think that's what stuck this engine. And like I said, I did get it to spin over, and I did spin it several revolutions, but I still thought it was kind of tight. So I loosened up every main bolt here, and now it's spinning like I think it should for a fresh bore engine. Something that you rebuild and you have fresh bores and nothing's broken yet, it is going to turn a little bit harder until it gets kind of freed up and broken in. And that's about like you would normally feel, you know, a generally rebuilt engine. You know, it's kind of just by feel. But with all the main bearings, it was still pretty tight. You couldn't turn it backwards. It would just loosen the damper bolt. So I felt like that was too tight. So all that being said, I think we are stripping this thing all the way down. And I want to check the mains because I just think they're too tight. I don't have any plastic gauge here. It'd be nice if I did because I check them real quick. But I do have a micrometer. I'm just going to measure the main journals and then measure the bearings, you know, torque the caps back down and measure the caps and do it the harder way than plastic gauge. So we're going to be yanking the crank out of here. I thought I was saving time. I'm not sure if I'm going to be saving any money. I might save a little bit of time because the block's already machined. Hopefully we don't have to do any machining on the block. Hopefully we can just polish some on the crank and open the main bearings up a little bit, give them some clearance. But it's the way she goes. That's sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes you're kind of just meh. That's kind of what I am on this one. I'm not too excited about this, but I'm also not like bummed that I got screwed over. I didn't get screwed over. So, you know, it is what it is. We'll take care of it. I'm going to get the work on getting this thing stripped down, get a plan. I'm going to call my machinist and see what he thinks. He's probably going to say strip it down and bring it to me. So, might be what we do. I'll let you guys know. All right, well, I had a chat with my machinist. He kind of talked me through everything here. And basically, he gave me the specs. I think we found what's wrong. He gave me the specs of the what the engine should be. And right here is this would be our crank journal. Low and high specs for standard, but we are 20 under. So here is the 20 under specs. and our journals are measuring about 379 with a 6. So here on our high side, you can see we are 3790. So that means we are 0.6 of a thousandth over. So just over half a thou oversize of the high side spec of our journals. And he thought that was enough to make it tight and want to start to grab bearings. And especially with dried up assembly lube in here, he thought that would be enough to lock this engine up. So hopefully he's correct. He thought we could probably polish that 0.6 out of the crank there, but unfortunately his belt polisher is broken down. So he recommended me to the shop he's been using while his is broke down, and that's in Oklahoma City, and that is like 2.5 hours away from me one way. So, you know, they're always busy. You can't just take it down there and wait for them to do it. You got to take it down there and drop it off. So that's 2 trips down there and back. So that's not really appealing. What I do have is hopefully a good standard crank in this block right here. So I'm going to yank the crankshaft out of the engine we just took out of the Bell truck because it had good oil pressure. I have hopes that the crank is nice and smooth on it, and we don't have to do any work on it, and then we can maybe put standard bearings back in it. I'm going to yank that crank out and see what it looks like. All right, this didn't go as I had hoped. This bearing is pretty much needing turned. I mean, you might be able to polish that, but there's some definitely some gouging in those journals, so I would probably say that thing needs to be turned. And I'm kind of thinking this motor is definitely not a low mileage motor. I mean, I pretty much already assumed that going off the bores, but look at that bearing. We're pretty far. I mean, we're at the end of the crank. I'm not sure where these things get their oil. If it's on one side or another, the oil pump's right here. So I guess it might be kind of in the center and go outwards. So we're on the extremity there of our oil galleries, but still, that bearing is not good. This engine had great oil pressure. It had, the thing would build 60 PSI while you're cranking it on the starter, not even running. So it just goes to show you that's why these old 6-cylinder Fords run forever, because they can be kind of wore out and still have great oil pressure and still run forever. So that crank is definitely a no-go. But I talked with my machinist some more, and he said, why don't you just try hand polishing it? And I was like, okay, well, I'll try that. And that was working, but it wasn't really going very far. So I went ahead and threw it in my lathe and using a little bit of machine power to speed up the process a little bit, and I am almost finished. I have them all roughly to the high side spec on our range of what your main bearings can be. So it's the largest that the spec sheet says they can be. And I got some 1500 grit. I'm going to polish them all now, just, you know, take a little bit off and just leave a nice fine polish on it. And hopefully that will be good. My bearings won't be in for a few days, so I guess we'll find out then. But hopefully we'll get this crank spinning and this whole engine freed up like it should be. I'm hoping this was the problem. It should be. And since we took the crank out, we can clean up all this goop and stuff from the assembly lube of the prior assembly and get some fresh stuff in there so it's all nice and lubed up and ready to crank it over. So I'm going to do that, get finishing up on this crank, and I'll check back in with you guys when I get the bearings. All right, I got the crank all polished up, and the the main journals are now into spec. What the book said they should be. We aren't oversized anymore. So now we are true to the 20 under that it was supposed to be. So I'm hoping that fixes our rotating assembly on this thing. We have yet to find out. My bearings are supposed to be delivered this afternoon sometime. They were delayed over the weekend. And since they were delayed, I went to town painting the engine. I think I mentioned before in this episode, this was painted just like the parts store rattle can blue. And I think it's way too light, and this is an Eastwood color they sell, the Ford blue color, and I think that is far truer to the original color that these should be than the parts store blue. If you can tell here, this is the valve cover I used to cover up the valve train when I painted. Up here's the light blue. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, and then down here where the overspray is, that's the dark blue, so you can see the difference there in the blues. But anyway, went to town painting this. I had to prep the whole engine, scuff all the original paint up so the new 2K Eastwood stuff would stick. Got it painted up, and waiting on some bolts for the valve cover and the bearings. Obviously, we got to get the pan back off of here, and I have to final clean the crank. I'm not going to do that until we're ready to assemble, so just fewer chances of contamination on it.
And I'm leaving this thing buttoned up until we get the bearings in here, so it's not just sitting here open to the shop. So just been piddling with it and trying to get it assembled. I also did the air cleaner lid. This truck originally had an oil bath air cleaner, but that engine, the 68, came with a paper element filter, which is kind of more common, and most people like those a little bit better. So I repainted that. I blasted and repainted that paper element air cleaner assembly, and we had the heat riser tube, which is pretty cool that we still have that. So I'm going to put that on this engine just so it's all nice and matching, but I am including the oil bath. There's one down there. I'm going to include that with the truck in case the new owner wants to go back to 100% original. I just like the look of the original air cleaner there a little bit better. So that's basically the update. We're waiting on the bearings, and then we're going to throw this crank in here and cross our fingers it's rotating like it should. All right, we got the crank thrown back in and everything torqued to spec. I did double check the bearing clearances with plastic gauge just to verify everything I've already done and all the measurements I've already done. And the mains were 1.5 and the rods were 1.5. I think the mains are kind of closer on the bottom end spec of the closer to the minimum on the clearances. But all that checks out because I was on the maximum on the journal size. So basically, the smaller your journal is, the more bearing clearance you have. So if I have the larger side on the journal, we're going to have less bearing clearance, but it's within spec, so I think it's all right. And the rods were kind of right in the middle, so I didn't suspect any problems with the rods because when I took it apart, the bearings looked like you could reuse them. But I went ahead and put new bearings in it anyway since we had everything opened up. So all that checks out good, and I have it set up to spin. Now this is, ideally, we would do this with just the crank in it, and you could spin the crank by hand and it should spin really easy. But since we didn't pull the head, we didn't pull the rods and pistons, I had to go ahead and hook the pistons up and everything. And with fresh bores with that crosshatch in it, they are going to drag quite a bit. And we also have the valve train all hooked up, so it's trying to open valve springs and all of that kind of stuff. So it adds a lot of drag. I just wanted to say that before we started. But given that, if you can do it here with one hand, it's kind of tricky because my engine stand wants to move on me. Here we go. So yeah, it spins over nice and easy, or at least what I feel it should for a rebuilt engine. And last time we were working on this, I couldn't turn it backwards without loosening the damper bolt. So let's give it a try. Yeah. So that's an improvement, because last time if you tried to do that, it was so tight you would just start to back this off. So that is an improvement. So I'm going to keep buttoning this thing up. Got to put the oil pump back on and the oil pan, and then flip it back over, and we'll be pretty well close to getting it thrown back in the truck. All right, here it is, finished product. I'm pretty happy with the end result. If there was a picture next to mission creep in the dictionary, I think it would be a picture of this engine and that truck over there, because man, this thing has really turned into a major ordeal. And a lot of this is just me being unable to leave things alone. And whenever I redo an engine, I have to make it look as nice as I can. And there are a few things I'm not quite as happy with this engine, but a lot of it has to do with time and money. Like stuff like I redid the coil instead of buying a new one. And the distributor, I just cleaned it up and threw it in there. It looks decent. You know, stuff like that. The air cleaner lid's got some dust in it because I didn't get a very good surface whenever I was getting ready to paint it, and it blew some dust in there, unfortunately. And I'm just like, it's good enough. You know, this thing's really snowballed into a major project. Unfortunately, I'm going to tear some of it down to get the thing in the truck again, because to hook my chain up without ruining my new fancy paint job I just put on it, I'm going to pull the valve cover off. That's not a big deal. Pull the valve cover off, hook a chain on it, and get it in the truck. We'll have to get the clutch back on and a bell housing, and I am going to put a new ring gear on the flywheel, because this one's pretty chewed up. It is resurfaced. I have to clean up a little bit of surface rust on it. But they turned the ring gear whenever they did all this work, but I'm still worried about how short these teeth are getting on the flywheel. So I had a new ring gear coming. I had my parts guy order me a new ring gear, and we'll get this thing stabbed back in here. I have to redo some detailing in here because I made a mess when I pulled the engine out. And now I'm kind of like, I should have pulled the cab and redid the frame, because now we have an old crusty, rusty frame, that really nice engine, and a really nice inner fenders. And when I started this project, I was just going to leave the old engine kind of looking, you know, original and not perfect. But I redid the inner fenders because they looked a little rough. And then now I'm going to have redone inner fenders and a redone engine and a crusty frame. But that's just the way it turned out. So we're running with it. It's probably going to look goofy when I get it done, because it's going to be like, why didn't you paint the frame? But it's what we got. So I'm going to get the flywheel and clutch back on this thing and get it thrown in there, and hopefully we get this thing started up and running good. All right, I was busy yesterday. I got the ring gear in that morning, and then yesterday afternoon, I spent the whole day getting the engine in here and firing it up, and everything went pretty smooth. I didn't get the camera out, sorry guys, but it was just all standard. Put it all back in and bolt it back together. I guess we've done that a few times on this truck in the channel, but let's give it a fire off and see how it goes. Got the thing running real good. So that's running pretty good. I can't be happier than that. Everything went pretty smooth. Like I said, it did fight me a little bit trying to get it to pop off, just like anything. You know, getting gas up to the carburetor. I need to get me one of them little squirt bottle things to fill up the bowls. I tried to pour some in there, but you know, ended up making a mess. But we did get it to fire off once I got fuel up to the carburetor, and the thing ran pretty good. I did have to you know, play with the timing, get the timing set, and adjust the carburetor, because I had taken the carburetor apart and put the new needle and seat in it, and put a new not a power valve, a new accelerator pump in it. So I had to adjust the carburetor a little bit, but overall it's running pretty good. Got the clutch all hooked back up. So we are just about ready to take this thing for a spin. I got to put the hood back on it and button up a few things, and we'll go take this thing for a drive like I was supposed to in the last video of this thing. All right guys, here is the finished result. I got the hood back on, I got everything on the engine buttoned up, and I've actually been out on a test drive this afternoon. We got about 70 miles on it so far. The thing's been flawless, and it's been sipping the fuel, which I guess you would expect for the little 240. Let me show you guys what it looks like with our nice new fancy engine under there, and nice paint job. Our little 240's doing all right. It doesn't really like the hills, but I'll let that slide a little bit, since it's kind of a cute little engine and what this truck originally had. We're gonna take this thing out for a test drive and take you guys along for the ride. This thing's been running really well. It's got the 3.0 gears in it that I think it has. It's kind of first and reverse is a little fast, so you kind of got to give it some throttle to take off. You kind of got to get used to that, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy to drive. So pretty happy with how this thing has turned out overall. I still got to do a quick detailed job on it and take the pictures for the auction. I haven't done that yet. Oh, and up there on the ladder rack, if you haven't noticed, while I was in town test driving this thing, I picked up an old aluminum ladder at the pawn shop. You know, a new one just wouldn't look right, so I had to get an old one. It was a little bit longer one than I liked. It's kind of sticking. I might shove it forward a little bit, but it looks the part. You know, old vintage ladder on the truck. But I am glad to have this thing up on the road and being semi-reliable. I haven't had any problems with it just yet. I'm going to drive it some more, obviously, to make sure we have any bugs to work out. But let's go take it for a drive. We got a little bit of a climb coming out of here where I got parked. Give me a workout for my learning the clutch on this thing. Like I said, once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. Definitely not a big torquey big block or anything like that. Another thing I noticed when I was driving this was about 60 miles an hour is top speed. And I'm not just saying where the thing likes to drive, I'm saying top speed, like foot to the floor. You might be able to get it a hair over 60, but I haven't been able to yet. So definitely not a hot rod, not a speed demon. You're probably not going to get any speeding tickets unless you're in town, but that's all right. Like I said, this thing sips the fuel. Last time I was in town when it still had the other engine in it, I filled it up, and we're just under 3/4 right now. So the 70 miles I put on it, man, this thing's getting pretty good mileage. I haven't checked it. I might before the end of the auction on this thing. We'll see. Another thing that I remembered, I think
I found out the first time I drove it to town, but I remembered it now because I kind of forgot about it, was the speedometer's off, because this truck originally had 410 gears in it, and the speedometer is still geared for the 410s. So it is a little slow, about 7 to 8 mile an hour slow, I think is what I figured. So I might see if I can get a gear that'll work for the gear ratios that's in the back of this thing. I think like a 370 would be perfect for this truck. So it has a little bit more gear advantage on the back end. You know, it's not a top speed truck, so the 3.0 gears are probably a little fast for it, but they get the job done. We're going like, I hope it's not too windy here. Let me roll my window up. We're probably going 60 right now, so we kind of had a downhill ramp to get us up to speed, so that helps. The old 300 or 240 in this thing, the old 6-cylinder, is pretty quiet, so you don't really get to hear much of the engine once you get going. You just hear wind noise and tire noise, because we got the old bias ply tires on here. No radio, so pretty quiet in here as far as that goes. The old 3-speed is shifting pretty good. I did change out the shift collar whenever I built this truck. It was all blown out and loose, so it's kind of tightened up a little bit. There's still just a little bit of play in it. You kind of got to find the gears, but kind of is what it is on these old trucks. I think if you completely redid the column and changed all the bushings and the shift rods and everything, you might be able to tighten that up some, but it works for this truck. Coming up here, we have what we call Horseshoe Hill, and the last time I took it to town with the old engine that was kind of wore out, it struggled to get up it. I think we dropped down to like 30-some miles an hour. We're hitting at about 60, maybe 50, 58. So we're moving along a little faster than the other engine. If I remember right, it wasn't all that fast. It wasn't all this fast, but here we go, going up the hill. I got her to the floor. We're about 48, 45, 48. So yeah, that's definitely an improvement. That is a big improvement over the other engine, so that's good. We're making more power. We made it up the hill without dropping all the way down to about 30 mile an hour. About 15 mile an hour gain going up Horseshoe Hill, so I'll take that all day long. It's definitely not a powerhouse, but it gets the job done. Overall, I'm just super happy about this truck. I even found a NOS spotlight handle off eBay and changed that out because the original was kind of didn't look all that great. It was kind of had some pitting on it and some corrosion. And I also found some memorabilia that it's not here yet, but I got stuff to put in the door pockets here. It's got spots for paperwork and stuff, probably a clipboard in the door. I got something to put in there, and I got some other little trinkets from Southwestern Bell history to include with the truck for sale. Been having fun picking up stuff like that, you know, in the hard hat and stuff. So I'm having a lot of fun with this thing. It's going to be, I'm not going to want to let it go because it's just a fun little truck. It's so zippy and tight turns and fun to drive around. I think if we put 350 gears in it or 370 gears in it, I would I'd have a really hard time selling it because it would just drive around so good. But you can't keep them all. I would have way too many trucks if I kept them all. I already got too many trucks, so we gotta let this one go. We're gonna have a Bring a Trailer auction in the coming weeks. You guys will be able to see a video posted here whenever that goes live, and I'll be sure to post it on all my social media accounts so you guys won't miss that auction on this truck if you're interested in it or just want to catch it and watch it. So that will be, I know I said it last time, but that will be the next video you see on this truck, of this truck on the channel, is my auction overview video. So it'll just be basically a video overview of the auction. But thank you guys for sticking around this long and getting this third time's the charm 240 in this truck to get it running and driving and back on the road after 35 plus years. I'm happy to be able to save this one. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you like this truck. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks, guys.